everyone, it's Sharonda from Pay Your Weights, and today I'm going to be reviewing The Matrix Resurrections, which will hit theaters and HBO Max on December 22nd. This film is directed by Lana Wachowski and it stars Keanu Reeves, Carrie Ann Moss, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, as this time around we return to a world of two realities, one everyday life and the other what lies behind it. To find out if his reality is a construct to truly know himself, Mr. Anderson will have to choose to follow the white rabbit once more. So for those of you who are new to my channel, welcome, hello, so glad you came, I hope you stay. I tell you what I liked about the film, what I didn't like about the film, and should you pay your way to see this film in theaters when it hits on December 22nd or on HBO Max, because that's your business how you watch your movie, okay? So, going into what I enjoyed about The Matrix Resurrections, and one of the first things I was most excited about when they announced that there was going to be a new film is I had all of these ideas of what does The Matrix look like in 2021? When you revisit, the world that we were first introduced to over 21 years ago, they were like trying to get out of the Matrix like in phone booths. And so it was really nice seeing, like, with new technology, what does this new world actually look like? What is the world of the internet? What does it look like now that it is more enhanced than when we were first introduced to this idea within the 90s? And also, too, I love the upgrades with the costumes. Lindsay Pugh, first of all, let me just have a moment of silence. I just want to tell you, Lindsay, if you were the person that was behind putting Yahya in those beautiful suits, that yellow suits, okay, to get that dark chocolate melanin, honey, yes, I appreciate you. But we see even a change in, the costume of what we see our characters in. It still follows those traditional hues, but the traditional tones of like this dark and black. But we see these hues through the sunglasses, as we saw with Yahya's suit in the film. I really love these pops of color and what this new world actually does look like. I thought they did a really great job of enhancing like with the world building as a whole for this new Matrix, for this new generation. Now, one of the best parts of this series still has to do with the bond between Neo and Trinity. And even though we do spend a lot of time helping Neo try to figure out who he is, I said, baby, we didn't spend 3 whole movies. You had a whole trilogy to figure out who you were. We finna do it again in the 4th film. We're gonna talk about that when we get to some of the issues with the film. But where this film does best is when it treats it as the love story that it always has been. And as we explore the connection between Trinity and Neo, as we're introduced to their characters who don't know much about themselves, yet along the bond that Neo and Trinity had, when it actually focused on that aspect of the film, that's where it truly finds its heart. That's where you become deeply invested. And also, too, can I just say, as someone who complains about the lack of chemistry between romantic leads in Hollywood, baby, after 20 plus years, they still got it, okay? When you see these two actors together, you truly believe that they are soulmates who are destined to be with one another, who are intertwined with each other's destinies. And I really love how they play on this and how Lana actually takes it up a couple of notches and really pays tribute to who Trinity was as a character, and even beefs her character up even more. I really love what they do with the storyline surrounding Trinity, even though we don't get that much of Carrie Ann Moss, and I do want to reset expectations. If you think that you're going into this almost 2.5 hour movie and you're going to see a lot of her character, you are not. But when she is there, her presence is impactful, it is meaningful, and I really love what they do with her character, especially in the 3rd act of this film, that honestly, if it wasn't for the journey that we went on with Trinity, I don't know if I would have liked this movie as much. But one of the things that I truly appreciate about The Matrix Resurrections is that they understand the relationship and the power of Trinity's character and how she fits into the overall puzzle of who Neo is as the one. And I really love, from a writing standpoint, that is the aspect that I most enjoyed about this film, and how they actually explore that while paying homage to this character. I really, really enjoyed that. Now, also too, outside of Keanu, who is fantastic as Neo reprising his role, there are some other standouts that I do want to give some kudos to, because I was just like, okay, y'all are giving me what y'all need to be giving me in this film. I really thought that this was just going to be a Keanu and Carrie field film, because they are our main leads. They are who we are used to. But I want to give a huge shout out. Jonathan Groff, is there anything that this man cannot do? Is there anything that he cannot do? He is absolutely fantastic in this film. I don't want to say too much because this is going to be a spoiler-free review. I do not want to say who his character is, even though I think most of you may already know. But I thought that he did so good. He is so good in this film. It actually made me think, like, can we just get Mindhunter renewed? Like, somebody just want to bring it back. I know this is not the same studio, but when I was watching, I was like, this is why I need another season. But he's absolutely fantastic, and he does such a great job of going toe-to-toe with Keanu and almost being one of the standouts of the film, even though this is Keanu's film, and he does a great job as well. Also, too, with the addition of Jessica Henwick as Bugs, I really liked her character. I really love how they opened up the film with her character. She just has this charisma. You want to watch her. You want to root for her. And I really love what she had to do in this installment of The Matrix. And I really hope that we get to see more of her future films to come. Now, also, too, I do want to give kudos, too, for Carrie-Anne Moss. Let me go back to my girl Trinity for a moment. Because when I say she didn't miss a beat, when I say she was doing all the action that she needed to do and kicking ass how she needed to kick ass, I was totally here for it when it actually came. But I do want to say that I love how aware this film is, especially when we talk a lot about how studios are rehashing their IP that they have, taking some old IP and trying to reboot it and create a new world for a new generation, for a new audience. I love that Lana is highly aware, you know, of what The Matrix Resurrections is supposed to be according to Warner Brothers, but even to the point where Lana actually pokes fun at it. And even though sometimes I think that it works for the most part, but sometimes I felt as though, Lana, you might be in on what you're actually saying that you're going against. That's kind of what this film is doing at certain points in times. And this will actually lead me into some of the issues that I do have with The Matrix Resurrections. First and foremost, I feel as though this film relies too heavily on the nostalgia of the previous films, of the trilogy, and fan service. There are so many flashbacks that happen throughout the course of this film that it almost took me out of Yaya's performance. You know, I love and adore Yaya with all my heart and soul, and I did enjoy him in this film, but there's so many flashbacks of previous things that have happened to kind of re-jog people's memories of who might not have seen the previous trilogy of films, or people who just haven't brushed up on it in enough time. And I will say you should watch all three films before going into this one. It would just make your viewing experience so much easier, because there are going to be some references that would definitely go over the top of your head if you have not seen these films in 20 plus years. So but I will say, because there's so many flashbacks to iconic characters, to iconic moments, that it took me out of who Yaya's character is supposed to be. While I like the storyline aspect of how they integrate Yaya's version of Morpheus into this film, because I kept seeing flashbacks of the real Morpheus, at some points I was sitting there like, well, why couldn't y'all just get Lawrence Fishburne to come back if you're gonna show me his face every 5 seconds? And I just think that in the beginning it works as how they write it into the story. But after a while, it was just like, okay, I feel like we're doing this a little bit too much. And it's actually starting to become very distracting. And this is when I think that Lana is sometimes a part of the joke instead of actually poking fun at WB. I think also, too, that because they spend so much time rehashing, who, Mr. Anderson, like, you are the one. You need to figure out that you're Neo. We spend a lot of time on him literally just trying to figure out who he is, how he is Neo, how he is the one, that it kind of starts to drag for a little bit because we focus so much on it. I was like, okay, so what is the purpose of this movie? Like, what are we actually supposed to be doing in this new one? And they visit so much from the previous films that the biggest travesty of them all is that it actually doesn't do anything to create something new, to breathe fresh life into this franchise. If you think about the previous trilogy of films, you think of, there's always these iconic moments. The first one, the best film of the entire franchise, I don't care what anybody has to say, fight me. But it has to be like, think about it. You had like Neo going backwards, trying to like dodging the bullets. You got Trinity flying up in the air. Like, if you think of the other films, when he's fighting the multiple Mr. Smiths, or when, Morpheus is on the truck fighting the people. I was just like, there's so many iconic moments from the other films, whether you love to love them or you love to hate them. I know y'all got issues with 2 and 3. I don't care. They still good movies. But I feel as though this one doesn't offer anything new to the table. I can't think of an iconic scene that actually happens in this film. And because of that, I will say that the pacing is off a lot. The movie feels long at certain points in times. There are cameos that are made, some that work, some that don't work. And I just felt as though that the movie didn't need to be over 2 hours. It didn't need to be close to 2.5 hours. But also too, I will just have to say that I do think that people got shortchanged. Priyanka's character, Yaya's character got a little bit shortchanged from the movie as well. But for me, if the third act didn't happen, if how the film comes to its climax did not happen, to be honest with you, I would not have enjoyed this film as much as I did. I do hope that in the future installments, because let me be clear, even though I had issues with this film, I do feel as though how they end the movie, I was like, okay, now that right there, that's what I want to see. That's what I'm going to pay my money. That's what's going to get me in theaters to watch, you know, the 5th Matrix, 6th, 7th, 8th, whatever you want to do. That is what actually had me excited. And I think that with the story and how it concludes and how it ushers in a new chapter, I think those will lead to those iconic moments that I'm talking about. But overall for me, Matrix Resurrections is kind of a mixed bag for me. Like I said, there's not a lot of action in the film either. When action happens, I mean, it's cool to look at, but it's missing like those iconic moments, like I said in the previous films. But because of the presence of Keanu and Carrie-Anne Moss, they're absolutely fantastic in this film. And it reminds us Matrix fans why we fell in love with this series, with this franchise to begin with. I think that the ideas that Lana have introduced into this 4th installment and where we're going with a potentially 5th or 6th film, I'm very excited to see how Lana can actually expand this world of the Matrix. I just think that there needs to be a couple of tweaking, actually creating new and more innovative ideas as the previous 3 films introduced into in Hollywood, because it really changed the game for sci-fi of love stories, of actually having a good sci-fi love story for characters that you can root for that aren't problematic in any way, shape, or form. I'm still on board. I'm still on this train. I'm excited to see where it's going to go. But those are pretty much my thoughts on this film. What I would tell you to do with you and your coins, if you feel comfortable going to see this film in the theaters, because that's your business, I would tell you to pay to go see it. Now, I'm not going to say that this is going to be revolutionary. It's going to be like, oh my God, this is the best movie ever. But I think that if you're a fan of the previous films, I think that you will still enjoy it. I think there's enough in there to excite why we first fell in love with the Matrix. And I think overall people will be pleased. But I do feel as though that this movie is going to be mixed. It may even become a love it or hate it type of film. I don't know. That's for all of you to decide. But if you want to see it in theaters, I would definitely tell you to pay to see it. And if you want to watch it at home, that's your business too. Get your entire life from your couch, okay? Because ain't nobody trying to put on real clothes these days. But those are my thoughts on The Matrix Resurrections. As always, my name is Sharana from Payroll Waits. And if you like what you saw today, make sure you hit the like button, hit subscribe, share this video with your friends, and make sure you hit the notification bell. And I love you guys 3000. And until I see you again, bye.